Welcome to the interview. I'm your host, Jennifer Clyde. I'm at the Korean National University of Arts, an incubator for creativity and artistry. Now, we are here for the screening of a film documentary that's been awarded several awards at international documentary film festivals. So come with me to meet today's guest, director Christopher Lee.
A documentary film was unveiled worldwide this August in time for Korea's Independence Day. The Last Tier was screened in various parts of the world and garnered both public and critical acclaim.
This is the first time I hear about the Harmony woman. So it was very touching and it was really, really good.
What the director did here is very inspiring and very touching and very motivating.
It makes me very excited that this is going to go into the universities and it's going to get into the hands of the younger generation.
It was honored at a number of international film festivals, including the International Film Festival for Peace, Inspiration and Equality, and the World Humanitarian Awards in Indonesia. Finally, The Last Tier premiered in Korea at the National Assembly. And its national college screening tour kicks off at the Korea National University of Arts.
Hello.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yes, nice to meet you, Christopher.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on our show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I know you're very busy right now preparing for the screening of your documentary film, but thank you once again for agreeing to be on our show.
Director Christopher Lee drew people's attention with the documentary film Fading Away, focusing on Korean War veterans and refugees. He also directed I Am Grace, centering on a North Korean woman starting a new life in the States, and Rescued by Fate, featuring a story of a Japanese-American Marine veteran who fought in the Korean War. His latest documentary, The Last Tier, also provides insight into Korean history and evokes empathy, compassion, and understanding by focusing more on personal stories and experiences. Christopher Lee has been making documentaries that bring Korean history to light. Let's meet the documentary film director here on The Interview.
And also congratulations on winning 4 awards at a film festival.
Yeah, that was never counted, but it's super excited. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the scale of the film festival and what kind of festival it was?
Yeah, we've been sending our submission only 3 months.
Oh.
It was very genre specific on human rights.
On human rights.
And I find it very interesting going to Indonesia because it was hosted there in Indonesia.
I see, yeah.
And as you know, Indonesia was one of the nations that was they also suffered during the Japanese, the World War II. So it was very interesting going there to visit them and see how people might react to our movie. Yeah, so that was a very interesting trip.
All right, now I don't want to keep you standing right here. We do have our camera set up over there, right next to the beautiful pond on campus. So why don't we move on and talk more about your documentary film?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, this way.
The Last Tier is a documentary film shedding light on the issue of comfort women and violation of their human rights. The film shows Korean and American college students visiting and interviewing Park Suk-yi, one of the victims living in Namhae, to better understand what happened to her.
제가 궁금한 게 딱 한 게 있는데 할머니 소원 뭐예요?
좋아하는 거
소원.
소원 이제 나가 많은데 뭐해 좀 안 아프나 하면 좋겠다.
She explains she was taken by Japanese soldiers against her will at the age of 16 and forced into sexual slavery at a comfort station in Manchuria for 7 years. The pain and suffering she endured are expressed through a monologue and contemporary dance. The Last Tier provides insight into the modern history of Korea through the encounter and understanding between the women from different generations.
So, yeah, let's begin by talking about the film. First of all, about the title. What does the title, The Last Tear, signify? And is there a message that you wanted to convey through this title?
The issue on comfort women has been around many years.
Yes.
And the fact that this commemorates 70th anniversary of our Liberation Day. But instead of talking about it continuously about harmony, we want to provide a sense of a closure for them. Our movie is also a part of it, that healing process.
Right.
So we want all this harmony who has suffered during this time to somehow emotionally close it and drop that last tear.
Right.
I mean, we sometimes cry, but we don't know we're crying on this because we're not showing it. Sometimes
Right.
we hide our emotion and we don't cry about it. So the last tear is all about that. You know, you could cry emotionally or physically. You know, it's all about that last tear because we want to close it with that last tear. You know.
I see. There have been, I guess, especially in the most recent years, many documentaries regarding comfort women have been filmed. So a lot of people have been seeing more of these documentary films done on that. Did that affect you in any way?
You know, I've seen many too because we have to watch it as a part of our research. And obviously we don't want to do the same thing because it's been shown, it's been told, and we want it to be different because we want to reach out to a younger audience. And also making the awareness of our history to non-Koreans, you know, because the sex trafficking, the human rights is an ongoing subject, and we wanted to somehow mix it by doing it a little bit different, you know. So instead of using the politics and demand, we went more emotional.
I see. Now, since you mentioned something about emotion and being emotional, I remember in the beginning or the intro of the film, it was very eye-catching. It caught my attention because in the very beginning, you see this female dancer. She's doing a dance. Just the combination of lights and these skyscrapers and a temple and the beats of a drum. I guess I don't know, it really touched me
You know,
deep.
that scene was never staged. We didn't stage that. It's,
really?
It's there in Samsung-dong, Bongwon-sa, but it was shot at the Bongwon-sa. Yeah. So the location is very significant because we have the past, the temple that is like over 1,000 years old, and you have a backdrop of a modern building. So that it's all about back then and now.
Was there something that you wanted to express through her dance?
We used to dance because harmony, you know, all these emotions in the story, they kept it for a long time, and sometimes they are very cautious about expressing it. That's why we use the dancer to help express that feeling, you know, using the dance.
Now also, it seemed like there were many unique devices that were used in your documentary. For example, there was a monologue. Was there any reason as to why you chose to have that part included in many sections of the film?
I think someone asked me why that lady played the monologue. She's not 10 years old.
I was going to ask you as well, yes.
She's not young, but she's not old. But, you know, but we are, then again, we're talking about Park Soo-gi 할머니's 70 years of life.
Right.
You know, so someone who's delivering that voice has to understand from the 10 to the closing, which is, you know, which is she's Park Soo-gi 할머니 is 94. So someone has to understand that transition. And although I trained her and script her, but she has to deliver.
Right.
And she was totally capable because of her ages and her own experience.
So do you maybe think that although it's very impressive, that could have made it a bit difficult for the audience to maybe concentrate and follow the story, or could it have been a bit difficult for the audience to understand the message you wanted to convey?
Documentaries are never fun to watch. It's not there's no action. We talked about that last night's screening at the National Assembly. One of the congressmen pointed out that movie is not fun, but it's very meaningful. But we do have a story. There's a story about Park Seo-gi 할머니, how she was captured, what happened during the captivity, and when she came back, what was her loss, and also closing. So there's a transition that we went through, how she was expressing during the movie. She had that limitation because there was a crowd of other people. That's why we had to use the monologue to have the voice for her and also dance for her emotions.
Right. How did you come up with all these different ideas?
Because of the 70th year, I think there were 3-4 other movies based on the comfort women, and some of the ladies, they were discovered by other a film. I'm sure they're all great films.
Sure.
They spoke the same language, and to me they were very systematic. Like before you question, they have an answer for you, and we wanted to be not only fresh but more friendly, and when you're in that situation as a comfort woman with that title, you're not always questioned by one person. There are a group of people, so they're very cautious to what they want to say. So that's why we just let her speak. We just let her speak, and that's what she did. We brought no politics to her conversation. So we're going to go in deeply more about our engagement with our students, but that was it. We wanted to make it natural that 할머니 is speaking to her own grandsons and granddaughters.
I see.
네. 안녕하세요. 아, 너무
잘했어.
예쁘죠? 그동안 잘 계셨어요?
어떻게 된지.
마음이 안 좋으시구나.
어떻게 본지 똥 싸고 그래. 화장실 못 가. 나가 많은데 뭐해. 좀 안 아프면 하면 좋겠다.
쪼만한 뭐? 쪼만한 뭐?
안 아프면 좋겠어.
안 아프면?
소원이요? 저 세계 평화.
I'd like to talk about the people that actually appear in the film because I'm sure they're very important. We briefly talked about the monologue, the dancer. There's Park Seo-gi 할머니. There's also the Korean student that whispers into Park Seo-gi 할머니's ears. And there is this other female that is on location with the Korean student, and I'm sure she has done the narration. So she's the narrator.
Marika.
Yes, Marika. Could you tell us about the student and Marika as well, people that were involved in the filmmaking?
Sometimes documentaries are obviously scripted and planned, but sometimes we work spontaneously. It's like another discovery within discovery. So how we discover Marika is that when we were filming various locations, visiting House of Sharing, Nanumeju, but there's a Cheongdae, it's like some museum. And when we went there, from the office, a few steps away, there were a museum actually. And it looked like a residential, but when we walked in, we saw many young visitors. And when I walking around, look at the displays, I saw one blonde girl. I mean, she stood out, And then I kind of picked because she was writing a note about, she's picking at the pictures, and she was writing a note, and I picked, and she was writing it in Korean.
In Korean.
In Korean. So wow, that's a good person to interview, because obviously she's interested in this topic that we're working on. So we got her out, and we slowly talked about her interest in what she discovered by coming to the museum. And the interesting part is that she's doing her research, her thesis, graduate research on same topic.
Oh,
And she goes to Harvard. So we asked her about our schedule. We told her about our schedule and our stays while filming, and wondered that she actually visited those locations. She said no, that was our agenda. So kind of suggested, can you come with us? That's how the relation got developed, and how she got involved in production. And we went to various locations, and during also a post-production stage, we invited her to come to the Los Angeles to do the narrating, recording.
It sounded very natural, and I think it's amazing how you naturally met Marika. Well, it must have been very meaningful to her and for the entire team.
I appreciate
as well.
it because she's not Korean. Although we had other students who were interested in the same subject, and they were eager to learn. But we had non-Koreans visiting Korea and doing a research. And she has more knowledge than anybody. So that was very interesting and very appreciative.
My name is Marika Ergenstrud, and I'm currently a master's student at Harvard University in the Regional Studies East Asia program. It was just a very overwhelming experience of realizing how different it is to read about these women's lives and see how they're talked about in newspapers, or even just reading their testimony on paper. There's something you lose in that experience, and I think part of what made this documentary project so powerful, at least for me, was the fact that you get to see how intimate and how this woman is able to share so much about herself despite it being so painful.
And what about the Korean student that was always sitting next to Halmoni? Is she a student of this school, or?
There's a lot of history behind that. She went through kind of same emotion with the family, by working on this.
I see. So I guess she was able to relate to the whole story and relate to Park Sugi Halmoni even more. How was it to say goodbye to Park Sugi Halmoni after the whole filming process?
This is what I told her. When the film is done, we wish we could invite you to go to DC with us.
Oh.
And she said, 그랬으면 얼마나 좋겠어.
Oh,
She
really?
said, I wish that could happen. I am 96, I'm 94, and because as you remember in our movie, we begin with the question, what's your wish?
Yes.
Other harmony, peace, but Park Sugi Halmoni wants the health.
Right. Now, how long was the filming process? I'm sure you get this question all the time, but how long did it take to
It's a
start
secret.
and finish?
It's a secret. 70 years. This is what I tell them. 70 years in making, because we go through her times, going back to her times. So, but every documentary requires a lot of planning because we have to bring the facts. So yeah, it's a long process. The post-production is the easy part because you have that information. But 7 years in making, but production probably less than a year.
I somehow like that answer, 70 years. It's painful, yet yes, I think it's a great answer. Now, I'd like to move on and ask you a question about how it was filmed in the year that commemorates the 70th anniversary of Korea's independence from Japan. Now, it was not premiered here in Korea. It was premiered overseas. Could you tell us about that and the reason behind that?
Because people here already know the subject. Maybe they're overeducated on the subject, that students tend to lose the interest because they were pressuring to what they need to learn, and that's why in order to get to this generation, especially the Korean students here, we want to go outside the boundary and see who else is interested in this subject. So when they got involved working in this project, working with non-Koreans in other schools, they found it very interesting because these are the subjects that I was learning and learned, but I never talked about it. But students in overseas, they were intrigued, and they could totally relate to their ancestors and grandmothers and grandmother. So because our movie is all about communication.
Right.
Communication, through harmony and mother, how we came to become who we are.
So where was it premiered?
So we actually, because we wanted to commemorate the 70th anniversary, we didn't go to school first. We went to Washington D.C. and also the Los Angeles, because we have significant amount of Korean Americans reside in California, Southern California.
Since the film was shown in, I guess, many countries, right, and different cities, I'm sure that people's reactions were quite different. Could you tell us about people's reactions, like what cities or which countries, how people reacted differently?
Not to brag, but so far 17 out of 17 film festival accepted it with some awards. It's because I think we covered it, but it's an ongoing issue, and the reaction is almost the same. And I could share my experience going to Indonesia. Indonesia was very interesting because they were one of the nations who had suffered, like Korea, and I was very curious how they reacted by watching the movie, like you have. So, but unfortunately, I was not there to screen my movie. I went there after they screened the movie, so I didn't know how they reacted during the watching and afterwards. That's kind of sad. But afterwards, there was a plenty of situation that I get to talk about our movie with a fellow filmmaker from all over the world, because they were there to accept their awards too. And then also obviously there were a lot of students came to meet us during the presentation, the workshop, and I found it very strange that these kids did not only they didn't understand about my subject, but they were not interested.
Do you think it's because they don't know much about history, or they weren't educated enough, they're just not interested?
I think because of the priority. It's not landed plenty. I mean, maybe I may be wrong, but I think it's because of that. I think they got their own priorities, and history is something that they left behind.
Possibly.
And we know how history is very important as a foundation to build ourselves.
Right.
And that's the one of the things that I saw looking at people in Korea and also students here. They're very competitive. But another interesting part is that when I gave my thoughts on my film on the comfort women and the humanitarian and the issue, they were so dramatic, more dramatic than I, because they never heard about the comfort women issue, what had happened to our harmony during the time, and immediately they asked me, did they ever got an apology? They asked me that question. But I didn't have an answer for them. I didn't have an answer for them. I kind of paused. It's a good question.
I think I heard somewhere that even for the comfort women in Korea, of the so many halmonis, it was kept secret, or no one talked about it until one halmoni, she spoke out. And once she talked about it, once she was out in the open, expressing, telling people about what had happened, that's when people started to learn. They gained more interest in what happened, to our halmonis in history. So perhaps.
I mean, we found that there was many reasons why they kept it for a long time. One, they were embarrassed. Second, they did it for their kids. I mean, some actually got married. Some never had the opportunity to get married because of the physical condition.
Right. Yes.
And they're speaking because now they have nothing to lose. I mean, that's literally what they told me, that I have
sad.
nothing to lose.
Which is very, very sad.
Yeah.
Countless women and girls were taken from the Japanese-occupied territories and forced into sexual slavery from the 1930s until Japan's surrender in 1945. Women and girls, ranging from teenagers to those in their 40s, were forcibly taken to the military comfort stations, and estimates of the number of victims vary from as low as 80,000 to as high as 200,000. In Korea, the issue of comfort women did not come to light until the late Kim Hak-sun came forward with her story. The Japanese government denied any direct involvement in forced sexual slavery and refused to take responsibility. However, due to an outpour of testimonies and supporting evidence, the Japanese government acknowledged its military's partial involvement and use of coercive methods and issued an apology as a formality. Yet, they've maintained that the reparation obligations to the victims have already been fulfilled through the San Francisco Peace Treaty and the Treaty on Basic Relations signed between Korea and Japan in 1965. But the Korean government argues that these treaties fail to resolve the core value of the issue. They are calling upon the government of Japan to take responsibility for the illegal drafting of comfort women and demanding sincere apology and show of remorse. The number of surviving victims in Korea has decreased from 234 in 1992 to only 47 as of October 2015. The Last Tear, a documentary film that covers this tragic history of Korea in time for the 70th anniversary of its liberation and division, is drawing attention worldwide.
So how was your film received by the Japanese audience? I understand that it was presented to the Japanese audience as well. How did you come to present it to the Japanese audience?
But unfortunately, same thing with the Jakarta. I was in DC, Washington DC, to premiere the movie there because it's Washington. You know, we wanted to reach out to the global audience, so so I was over there physically presenting the movie, and there was someone else hosting the screening in Tokyo and other various locations. But so I'm also curious how they will react, but unfortunately I was not there, so that's why we're planning in early next year. We're planning out bigger screening. Actually, we're thinking about touring in Japan, working with the universities and also other organizations and other activists.
Okay, so your tour around Japan is currently in the process of being planned? You're planning right now?
No, we have commitment already.
Oh, you do?
And also, you know, there are film festivals over there. You know, so I'm curious if whether they're gonna accept or not. Yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah.
We'll have to wait and see.
14 college students from Korea, the US, China, and other parts of the world took part in the production of The Last Tear. This was its first screening at a university in Korea.
학생들 인턴으로 참여를 하면서 평소에는 잘 느끼지 못했던 역사나 그리고 사회적인 문제 그리고 사람의 삶에 대해서 공감하는 문제에 대해서 많이 배우고 그리고 느낄 수 있어요.
Before the screening, a group of Korean National University of Arts students gave a performance under the theme of comfort women.
아픔에 대한 그런 마음이 점차 치유되는 과정에 대해서 그린 곡이에요. 그런 할머니들이 가지고 있는 상처들이 끝없이 그냥 상처로만 남는 것이 아니라 저희의 바람대로 음악에 담겨진 소망대로 치유될 수 있게끔 저희가
It was followed with a dance performance, also focusing on the issue of comfort women.
저한테 좀 약간 버거웠고 너무 무거운 주제였어요. 왜냐하면 실질적으로 제가 공감할 수도 없는 부분이고 그걸 이해한다고 얘기하기도 되게 어려운 부분이거든요. 그래서 슬픈 상황이나 아니면 굉장히 힘든 일이 생겼을 때 이걸 빨리 끝내고 싶어 하는 약간 어떻게 보면 몸부림?
Miss Pak Suk-yi is a surviving victim of forced sexual slavery during World War II. The audience approached the elderly woman to hear her compelling story and learn the tragic history of Korea that should never be forgotten. After the credits rolled, director Lee took the stage to speak to the audience.
전 세계 곳곳에 이런 그 사회적인 이슈, 인권적인 거를 우리나라뿐만 아니라 여러 나라에도 이런 인권 문제가 있다는 거를 전달하고 공감하고 또 나누고 또 그런
What aspects of the documentary left a strong impression on the audience?
무용도 나오고 연극도 나오고 좀 더 새로운 방식으로 표현하려는 것 같아서 좋았어요.
이 위안부라는 이슈가 할머니 개인의 이야기가 아니라 좀 이제 우리가 보편적으로 느낄 수 있는 그런 인간의 그런 슬픔에 관한 이야기라는 걸 상상할 수 있는 좋은 장치가 되었다고 생각합니다.
Thanks to the students from around the world who contributed to its making, The Last Tear is evoking empathy and understanding among people across generations and ethnic groups.
Now, is there a reason why you've come here, why you've brought us here to the Korea National University of Arts? Does this school have to do something with the presenter, with the narrator, with the students and the staff perhaps that you work with while making this film documentary?
You know, one of the uniqueness about this production, not the movie, the production, is that we collaborate with the students. I grew up, I was born in Korea, but left Korea to go to US when I was very young, and I have no memory about Korea and history too. I only know 이순신 장군 because that's how much I learned about history. So taking on a challenge of a subject, Kung Fu women going back 70 years of Japanese occupation, that's very mouthful. So by collaborating with the students who actually studied flipping books and someone who lived through a life and a real experience, and I think there's some good collaboration that we could find, and that's what happened. They provided me with the information, and then I provided them with my experience, and that's how it came naturally. That's why we had like 14 students involved in making this project, and also we didn't want to use only Koreans because what they learned from the Western cultures and Western schools is very different.
Right.
So we had schools from international schools, and we visited. We are here in Hanyejeong is because we're beginning our college tour today.
I see.
Yeah.
That must be very, very meaningful.
Yes.
Do you plan for screenings at other universities as well?
Yeah.
Other schools?
Yeah. So like every movie has a genre and objective. And our genre is a documentary, but our targeted audience are students. Because I learned by making this film. I researched and I discovered, and I felt it because I was there at the site touching it. So we want to share our experience as much as possible. And not necessarily my voice is all the same generation. The students involved in the project, and when they learn the same thing, they could deliver the same thing to the fellow students internationally.
So you've done much traveling while you prepared and planned and filmed this documentary. Could you tell us about some maybe memorable incidents or moments?
Well, me for particularly, everything that we visited are new and it's a discovery for me. But especially when we visited this historical location, the comfort station in Nanjing and Shanghai, when we were there, it was very emotional. So and when our students, when they had their own interest in the hobby of taking photographs, we shot plenty of photographs.
Plenty meaning?
Plenty, like tens of thousands of photographs.
Wow.
Because sometimes some of the shots could be used in the film, so we shot as many. And when we brought those photographs, when we went through them, wow, this could have been another documentary. So what we did was we actually put them in a book.
Oh, I see.
So it's called the Lost Tear book. But so we documented ourselves of all the places that we went, and it became a photo journal book. And also the students also obviously learned a lot from their discovery. So what I also did was ask them to write an essay.
Oh, and those essays are included in
so
the book
how
as well.
they got involved, what was their highlights and lowlights, and also, what they learned by working on this film. So it became a textbook, one way. So when you look at these, I don't know, we could show this on the screen, but these are they're not in a chronological order. They're like photographs of all the places that we visited.
That you've visited.
Yeah, and there's not much of words except for the essay.
So these are all written by the students?
Yeah.
And
all in English, all in
I
English.
see.
So, and our motivation and the goal is to distribute to the schools and libraries as much as possible.
Oh, I see.
To share our experience.
So this is like a whole collection of pictures, or maybe a section of the so many pictures that were taken by everyone involved, the students, and
예, 안녕하세요. 저는 성균관대학교 유학동양학과를 다니고 있고 이번에 더 라스트 티어 영화 제작에 사진가로 참여한 김규식입니다. 언제 가장 행복하냐 그랬더니 뭐 하면서 행복한 게 있냐 했더니 뭐 아무것도 없다고 이럴 때가 그렇게 말씀하실 때가 있었는데 저는 하면서 되게 외할머니 생각이 많이 났는데 외할머니도 좀 비슷한 말씀을 하셨거든요. 그 행복한 거 뭐 있냐, 선물할 때 어렸을 때 이제 지금은 안 계시는데 갖고 싶은 거 뭐예요 이렇게 물었는데 내가 뭘 갖고 싶겠어 아무것도 없지 그랬는데 그런 장면이 생각나고 외할머니도 생각도 많이 나고.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 한국예술종합학교 연극원 예술경영과 4학년에 재학 중인 유우진입니다. 이번 더 라스트 티어 영화에서는 협력 PD 역할을 맡았습니다. 제가 영화를 볼 때마다 울게 되는 장면이 있는데요. 그 할머니가 그냥 살아오신 세월을 압축하는 단어가 외롭다는 단어였던 것 같아요. 그래서 제가 죄송합니다. 알지 못했던 그런 다른 사람들의 삶에 대해서 관심을 갖게 되고 나니까 저런 감정에 대해서 굉장히 인상을 많이 받았어요.
공감할 수 있는 그 폭이 더
넓어진 거죠. 네.
And also, what kind of impact do you want to make on the youth and young adults of Korea regarding comfort women, or just through the last tier, through your work?
Well, I want to encourage students to express more. Like I remember how we talked about the expressions of dancers. The students need to get their words out too, not repeating someone else's word. I want people to just speak out and be confident, even if they make mistakes, because they're so bad at making mistakes, or even just to try.
Right.
So that's why I want to provide them with more opportunity. So by working with a group of students, we bring other groups. We discover more. So, and then the subject may change, but that's a fun part.
Well, I do want to say that it's personally, I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, and I wish you success all the time in your future projects. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.